back to another Java tutorial, and in today's video we're going to take a look at array lists. We're going to see how to create an array, how to add values to them, and how to use the values. We're going to take a look at two methods that we can use in array lists, and we're going to compare array lists to normal arrays. But before we begin with the array lists, let's take a quick overview of arrays. So remember that an array is a collection that can store a value or classes and can be of data types or of classes. Arrays are a fixed size and they can be created by instantiation or by directly adding values to them. Take the two examples below. String names gets the value of new, string of 5, meaning that the array names is going to be of size 5, or string names gets the value of Caesar and then Lucy. That will make the array of size 2. To use the value in the array, you call the variable and then the index to get whatever is inside that index. So for example, system.out.println names at 0. That will return Caesar. Or names at 0 gets the value of Louis. Caesar will now be replaced with Louis. Remember that the indexes of an array starts at 0 and ends at 1 less than the size of the array. If you try to call an index that's outside of the array size, you'll get an index out of bounds exception, meaning that that index doesn't exist. Take a look at the example below. Int num gets the value of new int of 5. We're making a new int array, calling it num, and giving it the size of 5. So the indexes go from 0 to 4. Now if we tried calling num of 5, meaning the index number 5 of the numbers array, we will get an error because that index does not exist. Now, what are array lists? An array list is an enhanced version of an array because of its functionality and some additional methods that you could use that are really beneficial. An array list can store variables or values just like an array can. It can store any data type or any class, again just like an array. But unlike an array, it's dynamic, meaning that you don't have to specify its size. Creation of an array list is practically the same except for one thing, and that's that you need an import statement for them. Adding values and getting them is almost the same as an array, only in this case you use a method to perform the same task. To start, import the array list by typing import java util ArrayList. After importing it, you instantiate it like you would an array, but notice the difference between the array list and the array. In the array, all you have to do is put the data type and then 2 square braces, the variable name, and then gets the value of the new data type and then the size of the array. With the array list, you have to first write ArrayList, and then using angled brackets, you put the data type or the class that you're going to use, and then the variable name, and then gets the value of new ArrayList, 2 empty angled brackets, and then 2 parentheses. Remember that array lists are dynamic, so you don't need to specify the size. Each time you add something, it grows by 1. To add a value to an array list, you call the add method, and in the parameter of the add method, you put the value that's to be added. So for example, names.add Caesar will be added to the array list. To get a value from the array list and use it, you use the get method, which takes one parameter and that's the index of the data that you want. The index works the same way as in the array. So names.get 0 will give me Caesar. Here is where the array list has some extra functions that make it a little bit more beneficial than an array. Two helpful methods in the array list are the index of and the toString method. The index of method can tell you in what index the specified parameter takes place. For example, if you have a list of names and you want to find out where Caesar occurs, you call the method and put Caesar as a parameter, and it will return what index it's located in. Another helpful method is the toString method, which returns all the values in the array list as a string. This is helpful if you want to see what has been added to a list. The difference between the toString method of the arrays is that the one of the arrays returns the address location of the array and not the values inside of the array. So in the end, arrays or array lists. Both have their benefits, but they also have their weaknesses. Arrays are great for storing a fixed number of items since it's much quicker to get to any random index in the array than it is in an array list, meaning that it's much easier to get to index 3 in an array of 5 in comparison to getting to index 3 in an array list of 5. It's a lot faster for the computer to do it in the arrays. And array lists are great for storing an unknown number of items and have helpful methods to show you where an instance occurs and where you can print out all the values in the list. The drawback is that they're generally slower when you're trying to get an index that's not at the beginning, since array lists must go through the entire list before reaching the specified index. So now that we've learned about arrays and array lists, let's check out some examples in Java. Alright, so let's take a look at some examples of arrays and array lists in Java. So to begin, you can go ahead for the moment and ignore this import statement here. That's for the array lists. And you can ignore this method here, as we'll also be using it for the array list. So let's go down here a little bit, and we'll see that I have two arrays here being created, one called names and one called grades. And in this first array, names, it's of type string, and unlike with this array down here, I'm instantiating it and giving it 5 values already, and the values being Caesar, Chris, Alex, Samantha, and Danielle, meaning that at the end of Danielle, it'll create this array and give it of size 5. And down here in the grades array, we have int array, grades, gets the value of new int of size 5. Now the difference again between these two is not just that I'm instantiating this first one by giving it the values, but also with the second one down here, I'm not giving any values except creating the array size, so I must add the values afterwards. So here are the values for each of the grades. Grades at index 0 gets 92. At index 1, 88, 2, 89, and 82, and then 90. And remember that even though the size is 5, the indexes go from 0 up until 1 less than the size of the array. Remember that if you put 5 in any one of these indexes, you'll get an index out of bounds exception. So now let's print out the names and the grades in the array. Each of these grades is relative to the person's name. So Caesar has 92, Chris has 88, Alex has 89, Samantha has 82, and Danielle has 90. And we're going to be using a for loop for this array. This is called traversing the array. And inside the for loop, we have int x gets the value of 0, x is less than names.length, and that way it only runs up until the size of the array, one less of it because it's going to be less than, and then increment the x. So system out println names add x plus got a and then grades at x. So let's take a look at what this does. Using an array, Caesar got a 92, Chris got an 88, Alex got an 89, Samantha got an 82, and Danielle got a 90. It works exactly how we want. Now, let's take a look at what an array list is. Let me uncomment all of this. And this is where you would need this import statement up here. Import Java util array list. So let's take a look at the array list. Here we're creating two array lists, one of type string and the other of type integer. And notice for the array list that instead of putting int, I have to put integer like this. And that's because for the array list, I have to use the wrapper class instead of the primitive data type. Meaning if I put int here, you'll get an error that says unexpected type. Or just like if I put double. If I put double, I'll still get an error. The only way to use those type of data types is to actually put in the word, the entire word, with a capital first letter. I'll give you another example. If we're going to use a boolean, you would have to use boolean. Or if you would use long, you would have to type out long, just like that. So let's go ahead and put this back as integer. And let's take a look at this. Array list of type string will be called list names. That way we know it's an array list of names. Gets the value of a new array list with the empty angled brackets and then the empty parentheses. And the same for the grades. Array list of type integer, call it list grades, gets the value of new array list, empty braces, empty angled brackets, and empty parentheses. So what we're going to do in this for loop right here is we're going to copy the data from the array and we're going to put it into the array list. We're going to be using the same type of for loop down here as we did up here. Int x gets the value of 0, while x is less than names.length, increment x. And now we're going to be using the add method of the array list, so listnames.add, and then we're going to give it the value of names at x. And what this is going to be doing is that for each run of the for loop, it's going to be adding a new element into the array list, and each of those values inside the element is going to be of whatever the names is. So the first one should have Caesar with then 92, because this statement down here is the same as the first one. Then the second one will be Chris with 88, third one will be Alex, 89, and so on and so on. And then we're going to be printing out, we're going to be using the ArrayList toString methods to print out whatever is inside. And I'm going to go ahead and comment this out for a moment because we're going to take a look at that in a little bit and not right now. So let's go ahead and take a look at what happens when we add the names by copying them over, and then we use the toString method of the ArrayList. Let's take a look. So using an ArrayList, copy data from the array to the ArrayList, and then these two lines here are the toString methods of the array, showing us that we have Caesar, Chris, Alex, Samantha, Danielle, and 92, 88, 89, 90, 82, and 90. Exactly how we want. And lastly, let's go ahead and uncomment this and take a look at this method that I created down here. This calls a static method called print names and grades, and to print out all of the names and all of the grades in the array list, just like it was done with the array. So basically doing exactly this, only this time we're going to be doing it from a method instead. So let's go ahead and look up and take a look at this method here, print names and grades. This method takes in two parameters, and that's the names array list and the grades array list, and it's basically the same type of for loop that we've been using before. Int x gets the value of 0, while x is less than the names.size. In this case, use the size method instead of the length method, x++, and then system.println, the names get x, meaning that this is going to return whatever it is inside x, got a grades.getX, and this too is also going to be returning whatever is inside x. So let's go ahead and run this once more and take a look at what print names and grades prints out. And we'll see that it prints out Caesar got an 92, Chris got an 88, Alex got an 89, Samantha got an 82, and then Danielle got a 90. It's exactly the same as we had here. And that is the difference and similarity between the arrays and array lists. With the array, you have to instantiate them and either give them a size or you give them all the values already, whereas with the array list, you can create them and then add them one by one. Arrays are fixed size, whereas array lists are dynamic. And not to mention that array lists have very useful methods with these toStrings. And let me actually do one thing and do a system.out.print and demonstrate what happens if we use list names dot index of, the index of method. We're going to say, where does Alex occur? And when we look at the array list down here, we should see that it should say 0, 1, 2. It should say that Alex occurs at index 2. So let's take a look at actually what it says. And you'll see that the index of method of the array list tells me that Alex occurs at index 2. So we've seen now how to create the array list, how to create an array, and we've seen the difference between the two. We also got to see the toString and the index of method of the array list. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.